real estate disruptors.
Hey everybody, thank you for joining us for today's episode of Real Estate Disruptors. Today we've got BJ Gremillion and Brad Young with the BC team, even more players from the Phoenix market. And they're going to share how they run multiple seven-figure businesses sanely, which I think is one of the biggest challenges, for anyone that's running multiple businesses. If this is your first time tuning in, I am Steve Trang, founder of the OfferFast Homes app, the only MLS for off-market wholesale properties, and I'm on a mission to create 100 millionaires. One question I get a lot is, how do I become one of the 100 millionaires? So please allow me to answer it here. The information on this podcast alone is enough to help you become a millionaire in the next 5 to 7 years. Take consistent action and you will become one. When you hear a nugget, just type it into the comment section after the show, identify your single biggest takeaway, and focus only on that for the next 7 days. If you get value today, please tag a friend below or share this episode right now. That way we can all grow together. And this is a live show, so please ask your questions for BJ and Brad to answer. You ready?
Ready.
Yeah, go for it.
All right. So I don't know who wants to go first, but the question is, what got you guys into real estate?
I already knew it was coming. Do you want to answer? Or do you want me to?
Sure. We were both doing door-to-door sales, and in 2008, my brother-in-law called me, and he's here in Phoenix as well, and he just said, hey, you want to come out here and do some real estate with me? And so I moved from Texas to here, and that's where it started. And
just called you. I recruited you from Texas.
Yeah, he was like, hey man, he was doing a ton of REO business, and he just at the time he was like, I don't have a ton of people that I trust with the accounts that I have, because I would say he's one of the bigger players in the REO business, and so kind of came in and started doing that with him.
Who was that?
Travis Larson. Yeah.
His brother-in-law. Okay,
Yep.
Yeah, it's Presidential Realty.
Yep.
Yeah. He was actually one of the few REO agents that answered the phone back in the day when I would call REO agents.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's funny. Yeah. He was definitely a big player.
Yeah, no, he was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Very big.
Yeah, they're awesome.
So you started working with him in the REO side of the business?
Yeah, and then I got into doing the trash outs, tear out carpet, do paint walls, do all that kind of stuff, kind of the trade side of the work in the beginning, and then we kind of teamed up and did our first flip. And honestly, he taught me from the beginning. Like, he was the one that introduced me to all of it, and then eventually we just kind of got to a point where I would find a deal or he'd find a deal, and then I would manage the rehabs, and then I would sell them. And so then it kind of evolved, and BJ and I met a little bit later, and then we kind of started teaming up and doing the same stuff.
Got it.
Just different visions, kind of went different directions.
Okay, so he's not part of the BC team.
He's not, no.
Got it.
He's still actually wholesaling a ton and flipping a ton now. But.
Is he still in the business? I figured with how much he made in REO days that he could have retired.
No, I think he's still crushing it. So.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Okay. And how about you?
Yeah, so I was actually with Edward Jones for a while. That's I got married. I had no idea what to tell my father-in-law what I was going to do. And so I was graduating, and I was like, my buddy said he was going to Edward Jones. I didn't know what that was. I don't know anything about finances. And I'm like, are they hiring or what? And
I heard they got a great training program, so you're probably
they
in
do.
the right spot.
They actually do. So yeah, went in and got the job somehow, and come to find out they pretty much take anyone with a degree, I think. So that's crazy enough to do it.
It worked.
Yeah, they hand you a phone book and they say start calling. Basically, that's how it works, and you go knock doors. So I was a door-to-door bond salesman, so that was pretty cool.
Selling bonds for Edward Jones.
Selling bonds.
Door to door.
That's how I got clients.
I've heard of Edward Jones going door to door knocking.
Yeah.
I've never.
And that's what you were selling, because you had to talk about something.
You mean bonds don't get you excited?
Oh man, I was talking to all these housewives. I'm like, hey, you interested in a 5% yield and and they're like, what in the world are you talking about? I'm like, I don't really know, but just give me your information. So. Started off doing that, and it was actually doing pretty well with it, but was not happy. It would take me about an hour to get out of the car, when I had to go knock doors, so I'd have to talk myself up. But and that's come from someone that both of us actually had experience. For 3 years we knocked doors, selling alarm systems, and then 2 years before that we also served an LDS mission. So I knocked doors for about 6 or 7 years.
Were you also in Texas?
No. So I'm from Colorado Springs. My wife is from Arizona, so
Got
that's
it.
why I'm in Arizona. So didn't
But
have
were
much
you
choice
guys
there.
were you guys door knocking together?
We didn't do it together. There's actually a lot of commonality that we found out after
It's kinda creepy,
we
yeah.
found each. So we found each other
After we found each other.
Yeah, right. This is my partner over here. My wife always gets mad when we call it our second marriage, but it kind of is. And so we've actually been together now for 12 years as partners, right? Business partners. And so, yeah, it's kind of funny. Like we started talking about our history, and so there's 8 kids in both of our families. There's both of us knocked doors. Both of us were dumped by our girlfriend when we went on a mission. Like there was a lot of like just funny things that we were like, man, this
You were
is weird.
both dumped on your missions?
Yeah, it was
that's
kind of
rough.
awesome. Yeah, mine waited until it was like 3 months before I was getting home. She sends me a paragraph letter and was like, "Yeah, we're done. I'm getting married in like a month." And I was like, "Oh, okay."
Well, at least you were able to stay inspired up until then.
Right? Yeah. Maybe the last 3 months was worthless.
Yeah.
So that's how we met at church, and then he was telling me about what he was doing. He was like, "Yeah, like we're flipping homes. Like it was like the Wild West. You know how it was because we were around in 2008. Through 2011, 12. So he was with his brother-in-law, and they're just crushing it. They're doing all these homes. They're flipping them, having a good time. And I'm looking at his lifestyle and mine. I'm like, okay, this is not adding up. I need to jump ship.
Selling alarms wasn't as rewarding?
Yeah, well, and then Edward Jones at the time is what I was
Okay.
doing then. And I was like, man, I was hitting all my goals, it just was not fun. Like it was not for me. So it wasn't my passion. So jump ship, went over, started working with them, and then just slowly, like there were so many homes going on at the auction, so he was doing more of the auction stuff, and then I was finding homes on the MLS that we were flipping for clients and stuff. So
Got it.
so that's how we started.
So with Edward Jones, you said you're hitting your goals. I mean, just for everyone that's listening, because there are a lot of people that listen to the show
Yeah.
that kind of either are still stuck in their W-2, or they got 1 foot in the W-2, 1 foot trying to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
What were you making when you decided to jump ship?
Yeah, no, I can totally relate, because I actually had, like, they would pay you a salary, and then they'd also pay you commissions. And so I think it was right around like 60,000, so like it was a healthy income, like, and it was comfortable. And it's funny that you say that, like 1 foot in, 1 foot out, because I actually got my license, my real estate license, which you're not supposed to do, by the way, if you work for Edward Jones. They kind of own you, right? They say that's like your own business, but really they take like 40% of everything you make, you get 60%.
They're generous,
So yeah, like totally. And that never changes, by the way. You're always
wow.
at 60%. And so, yeah, and I knew that you can get other licenses, but in my mind, I'm thinking, because I live in the gray, right? So I'm thinking, okay, so I can still get go to school, get the license, just don't hang it with someone, and I'll be good. And so I did that, and then somehow they do random audits, and they flagged me. So I had 2 dudes show up like FBI style, and I'm not even exaggerating, honestly. Like they came to my office, they called me, they're like, you need to get here now. So I show up, and they're in like black suit and tie, and they are like 300-pound bouncers. Like I've never seen anything like it. So I go in, and they're like, all right, hey, did you get your license? And I'm like, yeah, I did. So like, that's against the rules. Yeah. And so like, okay, well, you're done. And they called up St. Louis, and they're like, yeah, terminate him. And wow. Yeah, it happened like that. And they were like, leave all your stuff here, walk out. I mean, they changed the keys. They took my computer. Like it was legit. Like I was like, wow, this is really happening. Okay. So I had to tell my wife.
Of having a boss.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah. So I learned quickly, okay, that was not my business. They really tried to sell you on that. Like it's your location, and you gotta be your own boss, but obviously that's not the case, like, so great business model for them, and I think that's great, because I built up a book of business from a phone book for them, and then they're like, okay, great, see you later. We get all the commissions, and it worked out great for them.
Yeah.
But it was also good for me too, because I think I needed that extra push, because I was trying to just, maybe I'll do a little bit on the side, maybe I'll, still stay here and make money, because you had a mortgage to pay, and we had a child, and so I was like, okay, I need to make sure I can pay the bills. So I can relate with that, I mean, I had to be literally kicked out of my job.
You're forced out.
To get it. Yeah, 100% was fired. First time I've been fired. But that's
thankfully.
100%. And it was nice, because the next day I went to our office that was about 2 miles down the road at Presidential Realty at the time. So I just went down there, started off, hit the ground running, and never looked back. Like actually, made more money. I think in the first 2 months there than I was with Everett Jones, and from there it's always been more. So it worked out. It was good.
So it was door-to-door sales selling religion.
Yes.
And then door-to-door sales selling alarms.
Yes.
So 3 years each, you both said?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then for you, door-to-door selling bonds.
Right.
Okay, so one thing I've heard is if you're hiring Mormons,
Yeah.
they're great for door-to-door sales
Yeah, they are.
because if you're selling religion, it's a tough sell.
That is a tough sell.
So how much of that translated
Mm-hmm.
to what you guys do now, or just in real estate sales?
Yeah, what do you think?
Oh, I don't know. I think you learn human connection.
Mm-hmm.
You go out as a missionary and you kind of forget about the things that you might want in life, and you legitimately, it's weird because I can recall those 2 years staring at a whiteboard thinking about these families that had said, hey, I would like to learn more. And so you're thinking about their individual needs.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is it that they want in life? And so a lot of times in real estate, you talk about building rapport with a customer or a client, and it's very similar, right? Like you're doing the same things, you're finding connection, and then something that's going to make their life better. And ultimately, when you're picking up a deal like especially an off-market type deal, it's because it's making their life a little bit better. You're doing something they wouldn't otherwise be able to do.
Got it.
Yeah.
Did you guys have quotas, KPIs?
As missionaries?
Yeah.
You set your own.
Yeah, and you did have to report, like you had
Yeah.
district leaders, zone leaders, mission president, there was like a chain of command, right, to it. And I think it honestly, it's a good thing for the sole purpose, in my opinion, of you finally like lose yourself, right? Because if you think about it, you take someone that's 18, 19 years old, like who is more selfish, right? Than at that point in your life. Like, I was so selfish, right? And so they take
you. Knew everything.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like my parents
Obviously.
were idiots. Like, like I knew everything. We had all figured out. And so you go there in this new environment, you get thrown to a place you don't get a pick. They're like, okay, like I went to Alaska, and they're like, okay, I don't know anything about Alaska, but whatever, I'm going there. And so, you show up and you get off the plane, and you're just thrown into a whole different world. But the whole focus turns from what do I want, what do I need, like, it's all about dating and whatever, all that stuff. It goes from that to you grow up quick, and it's like, oh, these people don't have a home, or these people are struggling with, marital problems or whatever. And you mature a lot quicker than most, because I've just seen so many young men come back, and they really do come back like men, right? Like they're battle tested. They've been out there, and it's hard, right? Like it's not fun. Like nothing about it is fun.
I can't imagine
like,
it being fun
from
anywhere.
a worldly standpoint, right? Like it's not fun. Like you don't see those benefits. You're not making money. You're not like dating girls, all those kind of things. But in a weird way, it's all of us that go on missions will tell you that was the best 2 years of our life.
Got it.
It's a funny thing how that works. It's just because you learn to forget yourself, and it's all about other people and not you. And so the empathy thing I think is definitely.
And how does having that different point of view affect your business? Like how's that impacted the way you guys run your business today?
I think that for me personally, like I moved out here in October of 2008. The next week the stock market crashed. And my first time to ever buy a home. I'm early 20s, and the only thing I'd known was a small apartment that was $375 a month, and we slept on a futon, right? So it was simple life, and now all of a sudden we're supposed to be big homeowners, and you learn how to deal with like adversity. I went to California, right, and you go there and people drive by in their truck and they shoot you with paintballs and they throw bricks at you. Like that's real life. That happens, and so you think, okay, my first like instinct is grab a boulder and throw it through their windshield. I guess that's the first thing you want to do because you just rode 10 miles on a bike to get where you are.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to step back and be like, okay, this just happened and that was their decision. Now I'm in control of mine.
Yeah.
And I think that so growing the business, like we started in the middle of a recession. So you're learning how to put pieces in place while things are still falling apart. And I think that those two, for me at least, was like, being able to just like stay calm during a storm.
I think also like the leadership aspect is huge, right? Because what they do intentionally is they give you, you're with a companion, but then kind of like what I mentioned, you have district leaders and zone leaders and APs and assistant to the president, and then you have the president. And so with that, you have responsibilities, right, for those people that you oversee and that you're helping out. And so I think that they really try to instill that leadership aspect in you at a young age, so that it's pretty natural, right? You get used to talking to people too.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, when it comes to talking to sellers, that's cake, right? Like, it's just fun, and you can just have a conversation. Like, people that struggle on the phones with wholesaling and flipping, I don't understand that, just because of my background and experience, because I think I did it so long, where I was like knocking on random people's doors. Like, there's nothing harder, in my opinion, than knocking on doors.
You get
right?
calluses
like,
on your knuckles.
Yeah, right. And you get your feelings hurt, right? Like,
right.
I mean, everyone slammed the door and you're like the scum of the earth, and no one wants to see you, right? Like, everyone's looking at the peephole and they're like, are you kidding me? Like,
Well, now we're looking at you through the Ring app.
Yeah, right. Now it's a lot. I don't know how they do it. Like,
Yeah.
they're still out there selling door to door. I'm like, how is that possible with that technology? Because I look at the Ring app, I'm like, nope, not answering. I don't answer for any door to door salesman.
Yeah.
So,
all right. So what is so you guys joined forces because you guys met at the church, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you guys worked at Presidential. What were you guys doing at Presidential?
So I was working for a company called Resume Mortgage, listing their repos, and then kind of helping manage the trash outs, the rekeys, all the stuff you hear about. And the thing that made me hate it the most was I was doing all of the cash for keys for the company. So like I
delegated that.
Yeah. So because I spoke Spanish, I probably delivered cash for keys to at least between 500 and 1,000 families. And like, I don't know if there's a time that scarred me more emotionally than like sitting around a table with half a dozen people and they're all crying, and you're sitting there like, here's $1,000. Can you get out of your house? Like, it's not me. Don't shoot the messenger. But like, man, you hate your life at that point.
Did you ever have to do it right before Christmas?
Yeah.
That was the worst for me.
The worst.
Knocking on someone's door December 23rd.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, you got foreclosed on.
Yeah.
Gonna have to leave.
yeah, you need to go right now.
It was
Oh.
that was not fun.
No, those are definitely trying times. But you weren't doing the REO stuff. So what were you doing when you started at Presidential?
So really, I've kind of found my niche in the MLS, right? And so it's funny because we say that now, because I mean, anyone that lives in Arizona is like, MLS, you can buy homes on the MLS? Like, that really did happen? I'm like, yeah, it did. It really did. Yeah, so in like 2008 through, I mean, even all the way probably like 2015, 16, pretty consistently, we were always finding homes, for investors to flip. And so, when you start out, you don't have money, so you're making other people rich, which is fun. Like, it's a lot more enjoyable when it's your money.
Oh, yeah,
made.
for sure.
But it was really cool to learn on other people's dimes, right? And so, like, you could, so we probably did with Presidential, I don't know if we ever have looked at the numbers, probably like 1,000, right? Between the auction and the MLS deals and the stuff that we helped out different investors with throughout the years we've been doing it, we've probably done thousands of homes, right? A lot of those were for other people. But it was cool to see the whole process start to finish. Oh, this is how you do a flip. So eventually, as you scrape together money, then you do them for yourself, then you do another one, you just keep rolling. And then eventually they all leave, right? And so like eventually we figured out, I think we're good. We're going to go step out on a limb here and open up our own brokerage. And there's a whole can of worms there that, we learned a lot of lessons when we did that.
Well, let's talk about those lessons, because that's something that you hear a lot of people that they're doing volume, and they think, well, the next logical step is to open a brokerage. Yeah. To which I always tell them, no, that's not the next logical step.
No.
So what were the can of worms that you guys learned?
Okay, so
start?
Yeah, so we move in, and like I think it was 30 days later, right? We get robbed. So they break into our building,
blind.
Break into our building, and it was like very intentional, very strategic. They come in, and all they do is tear apart our network system. There are floor seats to the Suns season tickets. It's worth $35,000 at the time. They're probably worth $2 now, but you know what I mean. Like at the time, that's what it was worth. And they were sitting out, they didn't get touched. There's credit cards, they didn't get touched. There's a stack of cash in it because there's a couple guys that rented spaces from us. None of that got touched. The only thing that happened was they took all of our computers and tore apart our network room. So it seemed like
It was weird.
it seemed really weird.
You think it was Travis?
No. No, I just, but it was like, it was crazy,
Don't teach
man.
those guys.
Yeah. But, yeah, that's what happened. And, I think looking back now, I don't know if we'd ever start a brokerage again. The reason why we needed it was we'd get stuff at the auctions all the time, and we would then say, hey, yeah, we can help you get it and help you get it cleaned up, but you're going to take your property management, you're going to go here, you know, and we were sending everything to a specific group, and these people came back eventually and said, hey, you know what, we just want you to manage it. And so when that came into place, that was where Travis and we didn't really see eye to eye. So we managed a couple dozen, maybe 30 or so properties when we were still together. And he just didn't want property management because he knew the liability, and that's where we really had a separating point. And that's the reason why we had brokerage, really, was to continue that.
And I still won't do a property management.
I don't blame you.
Smart.
Okay, so if you're saying you wouldn't open a brokerage, but you want to do property management, and most brokerages, generally speaking, don't want to touch property management. So then what would you guys do if you guys couldn't open a brokerage?
I mean, if you look at the businesses that we run and operate, I mean, that is by far the least income producing side of it. Like it's almost like it doesn't even really exist.
It's like a loss leader.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have it there so that, like, yeah, if you have some deal come across, you're like, okay, yeah, like there's some money to be made there. Because I think each door in property management, for instance, you average, let's say, $1,500 a year, right, on that. So it's nice to have kind of, and it's also nice because, like, our whole thing, when we started off too, I think our vision was, hey, we want to be like a one-stop realty solution. That was our slogan for a long time. Like, we wanted to kind of be able to offer all the solutions, like, because we were like, hey, like, I don't want to give anyone else, you know, money, basically. Like, I want to keep it all, right? And so we were like, let's do property management. Like, let's see everything from start to finish. Let's start a construction company. Let's do a development company. Like, if you think about what we've done, it really is. It's like, I think there's something inherent in us that we hate having to pay other people to do. We're like, oh, we can do that, right? So then we'll just start it up. I think as we're getting older and a little bit more mature, you know, not a whole lot more mature, but
At least older.
yeah, we're at least getting older. I'm losing my hair and stuff, but like, I think that we're slowly being like, hey, we need to simplify, right? So you go from I want to take over the world to like, oh, now I need to like narrow my focus and get really, really deep and really good at 3 or 4 things, you know? And so I think 2020 has been a big year for us in that regards, where it's like, hey, focus your energy, talents, and everything, and just, you know, go hard at those things, as opposed to trying to. So just a perfect example, speaking of all the opportunities that we come up with. So we're all entrepreneurs. Steve, I know I've listened to your show for a long time. I know that you have a ton of ideas. You're very similar minded to us, right?
I'm worried where this is gonna
You're
go.
a very kindred spirit to us. And so, like, how many ideas do you come up with every month that are like genius
I mean,
ideas?
it's a lot, and then they get rejected by my partners.
Okay. So yeah, we're the same way. Like, we actually have, so we do you level 10 meetings?
Absolutely.
Traction? Okay.
Absolutely.
So we have our meetings. On our meeting board, we have a section that is opportunities, right? We did that because we realized all that we need to do is just get it off our chest. I just need to tell you, like, how great of an idea this is, how much money it's really going to make, you know, and all the great vision that I have for it that I just thought of on the toilet like 10 minutes ago. And just need to get it out there to everyone, tell you how cool it is. And then we're like, okay, let's put it on the opportunities board, and maybe we'll revisit it. You know, if it's a good idea, we'll come back to it. Well, I don't think we've ever come back to that opportunity board. And it's just super long. It just keeps growing, you know.
Yeah.
But I think it's a way for us to just, like, get it off. You know?
Release it.
Yes. Yeah. As opposed to, okay, all right, yeah, well, let's figure it out right now.
Yeah.
Like, let's scratch this out on paper, and business has started tomorrow. We've got the website up and running. You know.
Oh, no, you can get it up and running real fast.
Yes.
So let's take a step back. So there's someone right now that's listening, and he's like, man, I am ready to start a brokerage. What is the word of advice to that guy?
Now, is this someone who wants to go into traditional real estate?
Someone that's got that's doing lots of flips, and it's like, well, you know, this is the next logical step. What are you telling them? Because you're saying it's open a can of worms.
What are they paying in commissions? Like, what are they paying to unload all these lots of flips?
I mean, I think we hear a lot is at 1%, right? Commissions.
Yeah. That's one of those things. If you've got a really good real estate agent, just go there, right? Like, that, to our point, what we're talking about is you start to realize, like, hey, pay guys. We were just talking about this before the show. Like, pay the experts, right? Like, that's what they do. And be happy with that, right? Like just give it to them. Like they take that stress off of your plate, and then it actually alleviates so much more of your energy, and so you have a lot more time to go deeper, right? And to get better at what your master craft is, whatever it is that makes you money, right? So, for us, if we didn't have a brokerage and we were paying an agent and they were doing a great job, why the heck would you stop that, and do that? Like our if you asked me that question 5 years ago, that would not be the same answer, probably.
No,
I think we've learned.
I had this conversation with someone on Monday with my bookkeeper, because like when I first got started, they're saying like the riches are in the niches, right?
Yeah.
Don't be the jack of all trades, because that guy just doesn't get paid. That
Yes.
guy is always looking for the next deal, or whatever.
Yeah.
And I was like, these old guys, like, what do they know?
Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
And now that we're much older, it's like, oh man,
There's something to that.
I should've done
like
that.
we're envious of the people that have like that one stupid niche business that just makes millions of dollars, and they have like 2 employees, and you're
Exactly.
like, how did you figure that out so quickly? Yeah.
All right. So then the brokerage was the first business you guys started.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and that was roughly, you said 2016?
2011.
2011. Okay, completely off. All right. So then, what was the next business? Because we're talking about lots of ideas, multiple businesses here. What was the next?
I mean, wholesaling and flipping was definitely, like, I would say, the first thing. And then when we moved over, we had to start a brokerage because we had property management under a different firm. And then,
Construction was
I would say construction kind of came after that.
Okay, and so that was around when?
2013.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Something
not
like
too long
13.
after.
Mhm.
Okay, so and that venture is still up and running.
Mhm.
That's still good.
Yeah.
All right.
It
So
just evolved from small rehabs to now neighborhoods that we.
neighborhoods.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
So so it just changed a lot.
So who's running that?
It's probably a combination of me and my brother.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Got
of
it.
course, he's got a bunch of guys that work under him. But
Got it. And then after that, the construction. Well, actually, before we move, so you guys did the construction, and something you and I talked about. There's a couple of things. First, you guys are doing custom builds.
Yeah.
Not because you necessarily say, hey, let's do custom builds, but for other reasons. That people are saying, hey, I love your work.
Yeah.
You want to talk about that? Because I actually had that same exact conversation with Tucker. He was on the podcast about 7-8 weeks ago.
is it
Yeah.
Merritt? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And it was the same exact thing. He's like, I don't...
Beautiful homes.
Yeah, he does.
He does.
He
He
builds
does
on
a
the
knockout
lake,
job.
and
Yeah, he's like,
he's
it
awesome.
wasn't like, hey, I'm going to set out to build a construction company. It
Yeah.
was like, hey, we see you guys on Instagram.
Yeah.
We see we're walking through your houses.
Yeah.
What would it take for you to build a house for me?
Yeah. I mean, it was similar along those lines. I think like we started off with spec homes and using other contractors, and then we realized again, like, hey, I think we can build this out and do it ourselves, and so we started doing some spec homes, and then yes, like I think from those we would have open houses and that at the spec home sales, and then it'd be like, well, what else do you guys have? What other land do you have? And then it's like, oh, well, we don't really have any land, but we could get some land, if you want us to build for you, then, we don't want to turn down any opportunities. So then, so it evolved to that. I don't know if we envision it to be where it is right now. It definitely has taken on a life of its own in a good way. There's a lot of learning curves on the construction side, though. I mean, it's completely different. The wholesale operation, you can run a very lean operation. You can run so our operation right now has like 4 or 5 people, right? And that's the whole business. And it's 7 figures and it does great. But you can do that with just, a couple sales guys and a, assistant and transaction coordinator kind of thing. So, construction can't do that, right?
Yeah.
Like there's especially when you're doing custom builds for clients, like they expect you to be there on a daily basis, and maybe not meet with them daily, but like weekly you have to update them, and they want to know what's going on. And so we've realized our sweet spot for our, project managers is about 4 homes, on average. And so per project manager is
But, like,
doing
per
4 custom
month?
homes.
Oh,
At a time. At a
Yeah.
time. Just 4 projects that they can run at a time.
Got it.
So when they finish one, we'll give them another one. But with that, there's so many other things that goes with it, right? You have a selections coordinator, you have an assistant, you have like the general contractor. So when you look at and you have all the trucks and all the equipment that goes with it. So when you're running that construction operation, it's no joke. On the overhead side, it gets to be expensive.
So you don't have the same profitability like you do in wholesale and flipping.
No. What would you say it is?
I think it's close, but it's definitely not able to run near as lean. The difference is like you might go do 15 million in gross revenue on your construction business, or whereas you might do a few million in gross revenue
Mm-hmm.
on your wholesale flipping business. So,
But you're saying the profitability is still like in the.
I mean, it's still decent, but I think for us right now, we're still in. I would still call it. I don't want to call it infancy because it's been running for a while, but we're still learning. You know, and I think that there's guys that get 30, 40 years into it and they've really dialed it in, and I think then you could see some things that are really cool. For us, we're more concerned with the experience right now, just trying to make sure it's a good experience for us and for the customer.
Yeah.
That I don't know if we run as lean as we could because we're trying our best to not skip beats. You know.
So like for us, our wholesale business, we're targeting a 50% profitability. What do you guys target?
That's awesome.
What do you guys target on your
In construction?
construction?
Right now, I think we're running at 30.
Yeah.
And that's for us. That's a good thing. So if we could keep that, it would be a pretty good thing. There's some jobs, and that's why we stopped doing remodel work, because no one wants to pay for a remodel, and no one knows that's open heart surgery, and it's just like it's really. There's a few jobs when they're cosmetic, you have a good return, but when you start ripping things out, you know.
Change orders,
and customers get a little grumpy because they don't realize that they just told you to tear down 17 walls, but your job should still be completed on the same date. You know what I mean? Like, and why did my budget just shift even though you just added Viking appliances to my kitchen? You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
That's like the bummer part of that. So we just stopped. We don't offer remodels to anyone because people don't value it.
Yeah, no, I think that totally makes sense. Everyone underestimates how much work is involved.
Yeah.
In a remodel. So then the other thing, because you and I, so we're all in CG together. So we're funny enough on the same flight there. So we were talking, and one of the things I said is like, I hate flipping. And you basically said to me, well, you're doing it wrong. And I was like, because I don't want to do any work. He's like, what was your response? Do you remember?
I don't remember what my response was.
It was basically like, you shouldn't be doing any of the work.
Yeah.
Right? Like that should all be delegated.
Yeah. No, delegation's an awesome word. That's my favorite word probably in business.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and you know, you get to a point where you have no choice but to delegate. Like when you're running multiple businesses, and you know this, like you run multiple businesses just and you do a phenomenal job at it. And so, you know, when it comes to doing that, there's no way you can do everything. You can't wear all the hats. And I think sometimes that does frustrate maybe some of the employees when they see like, oh man, you're just pushing these responsibilities off, you know, to us. But it's like, hey, you know, in this 8-hour window, we got to deal with this whole plethora of different businesses. You know, there's problems, there's fires always that you're putting out in any business. And so just compound that by, you know, 4 or 5. And
Oh yeah, the level of complexities.
yeah. So yeah.
So we got the construction, 2011. Then what was the next business?
Then I think we
Or
kind of
2013,
took a little, you know, hiatus for a minute on like creating the new businesses. I know we brought on the development side of it because it kind of goes hand in hand, obviously, with the construction side. And then since then, we've also added a plumbing company as well, which has been a great experience. We found there's a good friend of Brad's that has been doing it for about 20 years. And so, you know, he just had some frustrations with not having the processes, the people, the technology, you know, kind of that pyramid. So we obviously came from that background. So, and I think that we're pretty good at it. We're working on a lot of things always. But I think we saw that was a really good relationship. So we merged together. So plumbing's awesome because turns out it's recession proof. Like, people always have to poop, right? So, I mean, there's always going to be a need for a plumber.
It's like owning a funeral home.
Exactly. Yeah. It's one of the best businesses. And there's so many, you know, different ways you can make money in the plumbing, right? Like new construction, service, you know, remediation work. And so, so that's actually been really fun for us to work with that. It's the first time we ever merged with someone, and it's growing like crazy. We're just hiring nonstop. It seems like we're always trying to find plumbers, which are really hard to find. But if anyone on the show, if anyone here knows a good plumber, we are looking to hire. So it seems like perpetually. So yeah, that's kind of I guess all the businesses that I can think of. Is there anything I'm missing?
I thought there was another one. No, that's it. That's all of them.
So HVAC is coming next year.
That's what it was.
So plumbing always has to have the HVAC component to it. So, and there's another good friend of ours that he had an HVAC company for a long time. So we're like, hey, we already have the plumbing side figured out. We have the dispatcher in place, and the facilities there and everything. So it's like, hey, that's the next.
So what it sounds like is you've got your operations running, and because you got your operations running, people are coming to you. It's like, hey, here's a business I have, and you can look at it and evaluate each one and say, okay, is that something we want to partner with or not?
Yeah, kind of a cool experience with that was Jason, the plumber, the guy that holds the license, and a good friend of mine. One of our meetings, we're sitting here in an L10, which is super foreign to him because he's never been in any of this. And he brings up, says, "Hey, I was just talking to a buddy of mine, and he saw some things and how they were changing, and he's an electrician. Would you guys be interested in doing the same thing?" And so we haven't pursued that because we're not ready, for it. But I mean, I think it just brings new opportunities all the time, and I think it goes back to your point of delegation. That's when you start realizing, okay, time blocking becomes really, really important, and I'm horrible at it, because I'm also one of those people that likes to be hands-on all the time. And but,
well, I think that's one of the fun things, right? For anyone that's listening, that's as an entrepreneur, is like you want to learn wholesaling, right? You want to learn marketing, you want to learn sales and running a business and so on. But the really cool thing is once you get good at running one business, you can scale that into other businesses, and that's like the funnest thing. And I think that for anyone that's so struggling right now, like that is the upside. Like I'm not saying there's anything wrong with wanting to travel and having all that free time and work 4-hour work weeks. I think that's also an option. But for us right here, where we're entrepreneurial junkies, like starting that next business is fun, and it's actually, you have to have the discipline to say no. But
hardest word.
But when you find those opportunities, it's magic because you already have the systems in place. They've got a good business, and you can partner up.
Yeah, it was like, to that point, it was like when we opened up Michigan, right? It was like we'd figured out how to wholesale here. We had a sales rep here that we loved, and he seemed great for us, and it was working here. And then he needed to move back home, and he's like, "Would you guys consider opening a branch here?" So
I knew I forgot one.
What did we do?
There you go.
What did we do? 60 days later, we bought an office building, and we're up and running in another place, and we're like, "Holy crap! Yeah, this does work. Like you can rinse and repeat this." It is very, very different going that far away. That is something we haven't figured out yet, I don't think, to run from a distance, but you got to go there on a regular basis.
Yeah, well, we're gonna be learning that soon because we're expanding to Albuquerque.
Oh, nice.
So one of the things we talked about is you're running multiple 7-figure businesses sanely. So let's talk about that, because you've got 4 or 5 kids.
5.
You got 5.
So does he.
5, yeah.
Oh. So you guys have a lot of things going on.
Even more in common, right?
Yeah. So how do you guys balance all of that? So, because we're talking about running your business sanely, like how do you run multiple businesses and balance that with family? And how do you keep everything sane?
Yeah, he mentioned time blocking, and I think one of the biggest things that we did, we got a consultant to come in. That was huge for us. That was in 2019 or 18? 18. Gary Harper, I know a lot of people have used him in the show, I'm sure.
He's coming here next week for me.
There's your plug, Gary. But no, he did great for us, and he kind of opened up our eyes a little bit. He helped us get traction going in the level 10 meetings.
BC
and those
Books,
kind of
you missed
things.
one.
Oh yeah, BC Books. Yeah, sorry. As we're talking, we'll probably think of other things that are kind of going.
It's an
in the
accounting
background.
service with some CPA services and
was
tax
another
strategy,
one.
but I forgot about
That's
that.
my next venture I'm working on slowly.
Yeah, it's smart. Yeah. So I mean, crap. I just lost my train.
Sorry,
where
man.
was I at?
You were talking about Gary and how he brought clarity.
Yeah. Okay. So he introduced traction, right, in level 10 meetings. So for people that are not familiar, definitely pick up that book, read it. So what we did was we went from pretty much never having meetings or just ad hoc meetings, right? Whenever there was a fire.
Meetings?
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, exactly. Got a minute meeting? Yeah. So those are bad. He's the worst at that. He'll always like pop in, like, "Hey, you got a minute?" I'm like, "Oh no.
It's
This is
horrible.
an afternoon. This is not going to go good." So, but yeah,
I've gotten better.
he has.
I repented.
Yes, but yeah, I mean, and really, I think a big piece of that was we actually put in, hey, every week you're meeting, and you have a level 10 meeting, and you get to rate the meeting at the end, like how was it, how can we improve, and so. People I'm sure think that we're always in meetings, but they're very purposeful and they have a very specific reason. There's an issues list. Like if there's ever an issue, like got a minute, hey, put it on the issues list. We're going to talk about it on Thursday, And so it gets to the point where you don't have those distractions because there's so many distractions as there is, right? So I think that was a big piece. And then what we did was we realized, okay, we have a core business. It's like the trunk, right? And then from that, as long as you feed that thing, and any opportunity that comes our way, it can't be out in left field. It has to be attached to that trees. Like, so that's why we're doing HVAC, plumbing. Like we have the construction, the property management. It all works together, right? We're benefiting from all of those things with all the projects that we're doing, right?
Yeah, you got vertical synergy.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. Great way to put it.
Yeah. So level 10 attraction. So that's one part. That can't be the only part. That can't be the magic key.
For me, this might be cheesy, but I would say my wife. Like honestly, like our dishwasher went out yesterday, and I'm running to Lowe's, pick up a dishwasher, and she's helping me install it at 11 o'clock at night. Like she's a trooper.
Your wife can install a dishwasher.
I mean, she can help me. She but you know what I mean? Like
I can't install a dishwasher.
I can't either. Yeah, we would not be doing that.
But I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like we're just there's not a whole lot I think that's gonna, like, don't get me wrong, her buttons get pushed if I like get tunnel vision and I go home and I'm still like can't focus on home, you know. But I think that for me, I think that's what's helping with the sanity, right? Is like you have 5 kids at home, and right now we're homeschooling our kids because everything is a little bit crazy, and she's owning it, right? Like, and she's like completely owned the household. And that's not a sexist thing or like anything like that. It's just like I couldn't do that. I couldn't do both, and I couldn't be involved on the other side as much as I am without her putting in what she's putting on that side.
Yeah.
So.
You mentioned time blocking earlier.
Yeah.
Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, I'm horrible at it, and I really am. But I'm getting a lot better. Like it's something that I consciously make an effort to get better at. Similar to not walking in and saying, "Do you have a minute?" unless I've taken a zip fizz and I can't contain myself. So, I tell myself, okay, in these 2 hours, one, I've got a little bit of scripture study, and then I've got catch up on some emails, and then don't look at my emails for this long. And I actually got to where I turned my notifications off on, like, I don't get really notified on my watch, and I don't have them on the face of my phone anymore or on the status bar, because I'm like, they were eating up way too much time, and it's not real effective time. And so then it allowed me to say, okay, I know that I'm going these 3 days to this project to look at development progress, and I know what times I'm going to go in the morning, and so I kind of already know what to expect those days. And then there's always infill stuff, stuff that you don't expect. But
right, the fires that happen throughout the day.
Yeah.
Is there a third partner, or is it just the two of you?
There's a third partner. Yeah. So his name's Nick, and he is the license holder for the contracting side. It used to be my dad. He still holds an active license, and then my brother's been in there. And we've worked together with him also for probably 7-8 years.
Oh, wow.
He kind of started out doing the maintenance on the property management side, and he's always been in the contracting side, or that construction world, and got to the point where he's like, hey man, under this license I ran the last 15 spec homes, and when we did this little development of 7 homes, I was in the middle of it. Like, I'm gonna go get my license.
Yeah.
So that's where it was.
Any other tips, for people with lots of kids?
I mean, to his point,
each business is like a baby. I mean, so like
it is, yeah. I mean, I don't know any real successful entrepreneur, that doesn't have an amazing wife behind them, right? Like they don't get all the credit, and if you don't have a supportive spouse, wife, husband, or whatever, like it's hard, especially if you have kids. I really sympathize with people that are having to struggle with, having to do both, right? Like that, my hat is tipped to you. Like that's incredible. I have so much respect for you, but without question, like if it weren't for our amazing wives, and it's funny, they also do like the design work, so I guess that would be another business, that we also have run, and they were running it. They did an awesome job. Kind of the same thing where people were like, hey, we love your homes, who designs them? Yeah. So there was a
then
natural...
strange thing, they got pregnant.
Yeah, and then of course, we ruined that for them. So so they haven't been doing that for about a year. But I think that they'll eventually get back into it, because they really do love it, and they're business partners, which is just kind of funny.
That's awesome.
And so I think we've always decided to do it the hardest way, right? Like everyone says, don't have partnership, right? Like, and I've heard lots of people come on your show and preach against it or for it or whatever. And
I preach against it all the time.
Yeah, you do actually, even though you have a partner,
multiple
right?
partners.
So you've seen the light, but it's also hard. My wife always hates it when I say it's like another marriage. But honestly, like there's some things. I mean, it doesn't have the benefits of some of the marriage side, but there.
Where are you going there?
We're live, right? Crap. But there, you have to make sure that you're also taking time together, and you have to. The communication aspect of it is crucial. Like, and we've had our issues, right? Like it's not been pretty at times. Like there's been some really rough patches. Like, if anyone wants some great stories, come talk to us about all the things that just drive each other crazy. But I think we've learned eventually to be like, oh, that's just who he is. That's and then you have to learn, just like with personality assessments, right? Like where you figure out, oh, this person's this profile, right? And this is how they like to communicate, and this is their love language, and this is how they want to be treated, right? And then we're all different.
Yeah.
If you can figure that part out, then I think you're going to be fine. You'll be successful. But you have to check your ego sometimes. Like, you have to be like, I'm going to let you run with this one, and I'm going to step back. And I know he does that with me, and I try and do it with him. Like, hey, I want you to run with that business and stay in your lane, and then he's going to run that business and stay in his lane. Because there's things that he knows. When he starts talking about dirt work and like machinery, it's like he's speaking Spanish to me.
Yeah.
Like, he starts going off on like, oh yeah, we need this for plumbing and blah, blah, blah. And we need to put this culvert in. And I'm like, I don't even know what anything you just said, right? I don't know anything about construction, but I own a construction company. And so there's things that he says. And then if you were to ask us, well, what are your KPIs? Like, what are your marketing? Like, what's all that? Like, he probably wouldn't know a lot of that because we just stay in our own lanes, you know?
So let's go back to, what most people are listening to is wholesale and flipping. So we went through all your different businesses, but let's go back to, I think you said the trunk.
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk about your
Love
business.
Okay.
What does your wholesale and flipping company look like right now?
Like, how many people are in it? Like, what?
Volume, and then, the organization.
Yeah. So I think we're on track. Like, we were going to do about 70, 75 homes, that we're wholesaling and flipping this year. It's a weird year. Every year is so different, right? Like, Arizona is just, it's crazy. But the interesting thing is you can do less now and obviously make more money. And that's something that we noticed. So our average flip is about 30,000. Wholesale is about 25,000. So they're not too different, which is why a lot of people are going to wholesaling. So we were doing a lot of flips, a couple years ago, or even up to last year we were doing flips. This year we went to the wholesale. It just makes so much more sense, just with the numbers. So that $5,000 difference it's so worth it to take the money now than wait,
With the risk and the headaches.
Yes. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at with that business. And it's lean, it runs well, but not at that 50% margin mark, but
is it where you have, because we have, our average fee is, I think, high 13s, low 14s.
Okay.
Average wholesale fee. Average flip profit is like 18 or 19, right? Not amazing.
Yeah.
But part of that has to do with we will buy what we can't wholesale. So like,
yes, that's kind of where we're at.
We are reluctant flippers.
Yes.
So we only flip like the stuff where we're like, okay, we couldn't wholesale it. And so I think for that reason, our margins that's the reason why I think our flip profit is so close to our wholesale fee.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Is that something that you guys are experiencing when you're 25 to 30? Like, if you guys were intentional with your flipping, it's like we're going to be flippers only, and we're only going to buy the right ones.
Sure.
Would that 30 be more like 40, 45?
Yeah, I think we could do that. And one of the biggest things that helped, I think, on that side of the business was getting a superintendent dedicated to just flips.
Yeah.
So in the past, we had kind of cross-trained a super that would have like one or two customer remodels mixed with our flips.
Oh.
And it was the wrong approach. He
Different
was
gears.
super talented, you know what I mean? But when you've got a naggy customer, then all of a sudden your flips, which have a higher interest, potentially carry cost,
and more profit.
They get backburned.
Yep.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, we get backburned.
So
yeah,
we're not going to be that pesky customer.
Yes, and making that switch I feel like was such an awesome move. We got to where it was like, okay, we know we're going to turn every home around in about 30 days. That's our average turn time. And
that's really good.
And we kill the budgets now. And so we might get more into flips, if wholesales get harder to do, but I don't know. That's your world.
I think there is a piece of the reluctant, right? Like, if we can't wholesale it, sure, we'll take it down and we're fine doing it. But then there's also the piece you also have to make sure that person has enough work as well. So we always will, even if we're like, we could still almost make the same money, we're still going to give him at least 2 to 3 projects to run because we know that's his number.
Yeah, keep him employed.
Yeah, and he'll just keep going, and he's awesome. Like, we've been super blessed to have him this year. It just makes such a huge difference because it's a different gear, like you said. You can't go from a remodel with a very needy customer to a flip.
Especially if you got you got the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right?
Mhm.
So like even though
100%, that's always been our frustration with flips.
Yes.
yeah, so you have to service her because she's gonna keep complaining,
Mhm.
but you don't want to service her because you're
Yeah.
not. It's costing you money.
Yep.
Mhm.
So what does your organization look like as far as the people in servicing all these different companies?
Yeah, on the wholesale side or overall?
Well, I guess we'll go the wholesale flips.
Okay. Yeah, on the wholesale side, we have a transaction coordinator. We had 2 acquisition agents, and then we have, like our guy that's running the construction side. I think that's everyone. Hopefully not. And then, of course, we have like the accounting department that helps us out on that side. But they're also over all the businesses,
Yeah.
so there is some cross there. But that's it. Like there's not a whole lot of
It's not crazy overhead.
personnel. It's just not.
Yeah.
Yeah. And of course they're 1099, the
Right.
sales guys are. So there's just not. We've kind of gone back and forth with having a lead intake as well as sales agents, and I think there's definitely an argument to have a lead intake so that you have checks and balances and they're checking up on the sales guys and stuff. So, but then on the other side, when you have a really good salesperson, they kind of like to be able to take the phone and they know start to finish.
They're gonna run it to the end.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
done it both ways. There's not necessarily right or wrong. It just depends on the company.
I think it depends on the person.
Mm-hmm. It does. Yeah.
And so, with everything you got set up right now, like, I guess you got one person running the books. She's managing. He or she
Mm-hmm.
is managing all of it.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, because I kind of have that situation right now with mine, and it's pretty convenient.
Yeah.
Because
it's awesome.
We slam all the companies into just one.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
just have one person right now doing all your books? Or do
Yeah.
they have an assistant or anything like that?
I meet with her once
Okay.
a week for an hour,
Oh.
and she manages. And she has one assistant that kind of does like the
Uh-huh.
The data entry stuff.
data entry stuff,
Mhm.
and then I'll complain to her. It's like, hey, this is wrong, because
Yeah.
I review it.
Yeah, yeah.
But all right, so we got Marquis DeQuan wants to know: is fix and flipping still sexy in a down market?
It's always going to
Yeah.
be. Like
Yeah.
the thing is, there's opportunity everywhere. It's just some people start to look away from it. Like I remember when we were getting going and repos were starting to dry up. You probably remember that time, and it's starting to pivot into a short sale market.
Mhm.
And wasn't sure what to do, so I booked a trip up to Winnipeg, Manitoba, and because I was looking at arbitrage, like the exchange rate. They're making 30 cents every dollar they bring to the U.S.
Mhm.
So I go up there and I meet with a bunch of newspaper printers and whatnot, and find the guys that, hey, these guys send the most articles to this age group, and we held a little seminar, and they came down, and it was in a depressed market that was still going down.
Mhm.
But next thing you know, 80 people show up, and we're still working with a bunch of those people today.
Yeah.
Where they just,
Oh, really?
That's
same
awesome.
investors, like, and
Wow.
I get a call from one of them last week, and he's like, hey, so what's going on in Michigan? I'm ready to fire it up. And I'm like, and we just finished selling a couple of his homes and
Mhm.
here in Phoenix, and like, so I think in a down market, you just have to think a little bit outside of the box.
Yeah.
Because when we're down, other countries are up. So some of our investors, one came from, he was in Saudi Arabia at the time.
Mhm.
When we came down, we got him, and things were good for him at that time. And same thing with like Canada. So
Interesting.
Yeah.
So David Martinez wants to know: what are you guys doing right now for wholesaling? Because this is a competitive market.
Mm-hmm.
What are you guys doing?
Our marketing?
Yeah.
So on the marketing side, we do postcards. A lot of it we were doing on our own, as far as like getting the lists and scrubbing them, and then sending out the mail pieces and everything. Now we have delegated that. Investor Machine right now does everything for us, and so Jason Lewis is a good friend of ours, and he's been in some masterminds with us in 2 different masterminds. So that he's good at what he does.
He is.
Really, really smart, and
Yeah.
so he's kind of figured out the list side better than what we could do, I think. And so,
Well, he's
or I know
automated it.
He has.
He knows the
Yeah.
list. We know the list.
Yes.
We know which list to target. He's automated
He
it.
has automated it. He's got a lot of VAs. He's mastered VAs. Like he's
Yeah.
like the guru when it comes to that. And so yeah, like we started with him a couple months ago. It's been good, but as you know, I mean, like I don't know if it was the same way for you guys, but November was just hard. It was horrible for us. And it was funny because we were talking to all these other wholesalers, and they're all saying the same thing. Like, I don't know what's going on. It's kind of crickets right now. I think the elections and stuff had something to do with it.
Yep.
But
Everyone
it's
got
definitely
tired
picked back
of all
up.
the marketing.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
it's crazy. So yeah, postcards is a big piece of it. Facebook has also been really good. We have a company that we work with. It's we probably get 1 to 2 deals from that every month, and so they've been good. And then we just started up with another marketing agency in Scottsdale, and they've also been helping out with some of the Google ads and those kind of things. And so it's been fun to see, all these different approaches and looking at, the KPIs and what makes most sense. So
Yeah.
you're always adjusting, always, right? Like it's like on a monthly basis, you have to look at the numbers and say, oh, like what's making money, what's not. And then you adjust, your budget.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, that's the fun stuff, right? So yeah,
it is. I love that stuff. The marketing, you have to love marketing, I think. If you want to be successful, you have to have someone in your business that loves marketing. If you don't, you're going to be in trouble.
You need an analytical person.
Yes, and that too. Yep. Yeah, I didn't know what a KPI was, like full transparency. I didn't know what a KPI was until I think 2017 or something. Like 2018, I was like, what the heck is a KPI? And I think it's because we went to a mastermind and they were like, spitting all these numbers. Well, what's your cost per acquisition? Like, what's your, and I'm like, what in the world?
And I'm like, it's a high-end chocolate. Don't worry.
I was like, are we in the wrong place?
Well, and I think that's the evolution, right? And I think also when everything's really good, KPIs don't really matter as much. I mean, they matter, but they're not as critical. But it's, like what Buffett says, right? When the water goes out, you can see who's been swimming naked, and that's the KPIs where it really matters.
Yes.
Because those that don't have KPIs are going to wash out.
Yeah, I mean, if you're in this market in Arizona, forget it. If you don't know what a KPI is, you're getting run over, right? Like it's going to hit you hard. Like you just wasted all your money. Like that's just what it comes down to because it's so competitive. But back then, like you said, a lot of things you could mask a lot of mistakes because you're making money, and so but you don't know all the opportunities you're missing out on just because you weren't looking at it.
I mean, that's my biggest regret. I mean, I had a freaking gold mine with PPC, right? I mean.
You did.
I did.
That's right.
And I completely blew it because I didn't know what I was doing.
Just what you had. Yeah, like how much was it per click?
It was $2 a click, $12 per lead for motivated sellers where there was no competition. Blew it.
You just didn't know what you were sitting on.
I didn't know what I was sitting on. Just totally blew it.
Oh, that's funny. Really funny. What's that?
All right. So for Marquis has a follow-up question. Any tips for wholesalers trying to transition into fixing and flipping?
I don't know if I would do it. I don't know why you'd want. I mean, it's good, kind of like what you talked about. If it's going to be a matter of a deal or no deal, and you know that there's meat on it, then great, take it. But I mean, it's tough to do the transition in this market, and I don't know where he lives. Does it show where he lives?
No, it doesn't.
So it depends on the market, but here in Arizona, there would be no reason why I would do that. So it's very specific to your market, just because there's plenty of people right now that you can sell to, and you can get almost any list and be able to sell it to people right now. But if he wants to, I don't know if you have any.
Yeah, the only feedback I would have is crawl before you walk. Like if I could go back and say, I remember some of my first flips, they were very cosmetic. They were 2008, 2009,
that's a good point.
Type builds. Or 2007 builds, even. It's
really easy.
So it was really easy. Like these are like lipstick on pig, legitimately type of deal. So that would be my only advice. Would be like don't get in and try and move walls and rearrange plumbing, and do something crazy. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna overwhelm yourself. Could.
So I set a hard rule for Max, and of course, he stepped right over it.
Pushing it.
Yeah. So it's like we're not moving any walls.
Yeah.
Like we'll if we're gonna take anything down, we're not moving any walls.
Yeah.
He's like, well, it's only one wall.
Yeah, true salesman, right? Yeah. No, I 100% agree for that reason. Yeah. Start with a cosmetic. If you're gonna do a flip, make sure that it's basic, right? Yeah. Paint, touch up. And then get into the crazy stuff. But when we actually looked at our KPIs, we realized there was a massive, it wasn't even close. The divide between the crazy rehabs where you're moving walls versus the ones that were cosmetic, I bet you there was like a $20,000 on average difference per house. Like it was like substantially more. So,
but you got to work your way up there.
You do, yeah. I mean, now it's a lot better. Now we have someone dedicated to it, and we can do that. But we still don't want to. We still want to get the cosmetic ones.
Yeah, get the fast ones.
Yeah,
we want to sell those to a flipper.
Yes, let them deal with it.
All right, Leo Guar wants to know, what is your why?
So I listened to a podcast by Ed Mylett. Is that how you say his last name?
Mylett, yeah.
And they were actually talking. He had a neuroscientist on there, and he was talking about the pleasure zones in your brain. and he was talking about dopamine specifically, and he was saying that the guys that are super successful in life and in business, and the guys that have just kind of been able to master their craft or their themselves, like the David Gogans of the world, and those Navy SEALs, like all these guys that we really look up to, they realize that it was not like the huge dopamine releases did not come from the achievement itself. It did not come from, oh, I finally got that house, or I finally got that money, or I finally got the girl, or whatever it was. Like, it actually didn't come at that time. It came through the process. Like, you have to realize, like, you have to enjoy the process, and the struggle is the fun part. Like, as soon as you start to embrace and enjoy the suck in life, and as soon as you start to actually like seek it out, right? Like, I'm doing 75 hard right now. I would always make fun of people doing these challenges, right? I was that guy 100%. I'm like, why would you run a marathon? Why would you?
So this is very true.
Why would you run like an Ironman? Like, you guys are idiots, And so I would make fun of them all the time. And now I'm doing it myself, but it's finally like clicking, because Brad's always been super disciplined and super like healthy and fit and everything, and I'm like the slacker, right? And so, but I think it's finally clicked.
Really blessed with good genes over here.
Yeah, right.
I have some really funny stories about that. If we had time, it would be it would be a good time.
Yeah, I'm known as the candy man in our office, and so yeah, like I love carbs, all that kind of stuff. But I think when it goes back to his question, I think when it comes down to like our why, I think it's enjoying on a daily basis the grind and the struggle, and not looking at things as failures, but looking at anytime you have a really tough fire, for instance, that happened recently, or anytime you have like something that really what was a struggle, I think we grow the most from those experiences, and it's the same thing in our marriage, and same thing just in life. So I think my why is just like, I love showing up to work every day. I really do. I love Monday mornings. I love going and just embracing like the challenges. And so anyways, that was very long-winded. I apologize to whoever asked the question.
But I completely agree with that. Like, and that's for me, like, if anytime my wife's like, hey, like, I need you to stay home on Monday. It's like, no.
Oh, it's the worst.
Not Monday.
Yeah. That's my day. Come on. It's not Saturday. It's Monday.
Yeah. So how about you?
Yeah, I mean, to the whole grow through what you go through, mindset, what you're talking about. I watched my family kind of lose everything in the crash, which is why a lot of us migrated here from Texas, and so I hate to say that my why is financial freedom. It's not necessarily financial freedom. I think it's more like keeping peace, so to speak, because I watched what it did to the economics of a family. When you go from stability for 30, 40 years to complete instability, to where you're literally like digging a hole in your back pasture to bury possessions type of instability. Like for me, it just, I went from that to doing cash for keys with people, and I just got to this point where I'm like, I want, and anyone that I'm around, like, I really want to see people succeed. I don't want to see any more of that. Like, I would love, I've been in a work environment where there's someone that wants to sit at the top, and they don't want you to elevate your game, which is why we believe in elevate together. Like, that's what we believe in. And I think that is my why, is like, I actually really loved it. Because I'm not a podcaster, truth be told. Yeah. But when you said like you're on a mission to help create a certain number of millionaires, like, I love that, because it means it's not all about you. Like, I don't necessarily live in the fanciest home, and for 5 years I cleaned horse stalls morning and night for a few extra bucks because it was an option for me, and it wasn't because we weren't making actually great money. It was because I was like, oh, it's there, I'll do it. Like, that's a little sacrifice. I'll take that I'll keep that for the family type of thing, And so I think it's more of that, like, freedom for peace. Like, so when you do create a little bit of financial freedom, you can keep the peace, I think, within your home a lot easier. Yeah. And I value that after seeing enough people have none of it.
Yeah. And you got to experience it on the traumatic side. Yeah. On the cash for keys.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, that was really painful for me. So I actually stopped.
Yeah.
doing that all
Smart.
together. So Blake Kircher wants to know, how important is mindset in being successful in your business?
You want to go first?
I think I think a lot of times entrepreneurs I'm sure I'm guilty of it all the time, but have a tendency to want to be arrogant, right? Like, whoa, look at me. You know what I mean? I think we see that a lot, especially in this sector, right? As everyone's like crouching in front of their new Lambo, sorry if I just offended some people. I don't really care actually, because I don't really care about that. But yeah, just being true to who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So be true. So if your why is about whatever it's about, stay true to that. Unless it's about just because you want a Lamborghini,
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? For me, I think mindset is just, that's what gives you the ability to get up every day and go pound through all your obstacles, because
Mm-hmm.
you can look at it and say, yeah, here's why I'm doing this. No problem.
Yeah.
Sign me up.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's understated, is that mental toughness, right? It's getting punched in the mouth and getting right back up.
Yeah. And something else I've realized more and more is culture is everything in an organization. Like, your people are your most important, valuable asset, right? And so, it's a struggle sometimes. It's something that we work on every day. We're not perfect at it. Our motto is elevate together, and we make sure that everyone understands that, knows that. But I have realized more so than ever that it starts at the top. You set the tone. And so if you're a business owner and you show up and you're in a bad mood, get over it. You need to get over it, and you need to get over yourself, because it's not about you, because now we have 35 different mouths to feed, and all our families with that. So there's a huge responsibility. So you need to show up to work ready to go, and you need to show up with a good attitude, because they're depending on you,
Right.
and they'll feed off of your energy. It's real. I 100% believe in the energy, the aura, around people. If he walks in someday and I know he's in a bad mood, I know something happened, right? And I'm like, hey, don't go to his office, because I know he knows the same about me, I'm sure. But it's something that we struggle with. We're not perfect at it, but I'm working on it. And it is something that I've realized more and more, man, they really do pay attention to everything you do. They're watching you all the time.
Yeah, it's not just what you say.
Yeah.
Right? It's what you
100%.
do.
Yeah.
So Ralph Pena wants to know, what does your daily schedule look like?
We're not good for that one, Ralph. So don't model us. That's another one. Do what we say, maybe not what we do. But I think it is such a unique. So we do have stuff that's concrete. The meetings that we have, we know that those are non-negotiables. We have non-negotiables throughout our day. But when you own all these different businesses, you're gonna find that there's different fires on a daily basis, right? And so you do have to be a little bit more flexible and open. I'm at the office a little bit more just to be there for the employees and everything that's going on, and so it's hard to answer that question, because it does on a day-to-day basis change. Do you have a schedule?
So
what is yours?
I'm probably similar to that, but I have to exercise in the morning. So I get up, 5:30 I wake up, and I'm I work out in the garage, and I can zone out there. So that's my space, and I know that if I get a good 45 minutes to an hour in there, I'm good to go. And I get a little bit of reading time in, and then after that, kind of then it just depends on what business unit I need to be in for that day. I'll have planned things prior to, just like anybody, right? These meetings are coming because they've already been set, but really it's prioritization. Okay, I know that I have this quarterly rock that's getting I'm behind.
Yeah.
I'm gonna apply pressure here for the next 2 hours. But as far as my morning goes, those are very set things. Just
That's the only thing we can control, right?
Yeah.
When you have kids, you realize you have to just wake up earlier and earlier, because you only have your alone time for about an hour and a half,
right.
and then the day's done, But that, you can control what you can control, and so I 100% agree with that.
Yeah, until one of the kids wakes up, you're in charge of the house.
Yep. Exactly.
XRP wants to know, have you found any deals from for sale by owner?
We were just talking about this actually. I had a sales rep that just went to one of those appointments. For sale by owner, those are a funny beast, because typically what the norm is there's a reason why they're doing it. There's a reason why and it's usually because they want an unreasonable amount. So that's the majority, but like anything, that's not like the rule. It's not that you can't find for sale by owner deals. And if you're driving for dollars, we do drive for dollars. We take pictures of homes and send postcards to homes that are dilapidated. So if you found it for sale by owner and it was a piece of crap house with the roof caving in and those kind of things, yeah, that's probably a really good lead. I would take a picture of that, skip, trace it, call them. But if it's in like an HOA neighborhood, it's always worth calling. Like if you're driving, why wouldn't you call them and just say, hey, what's your number? Are you flexible? And then where can we go from there? It's just like any other conversation you would have with anyone. But usually, they're going to come back with like a crazy number, like I don't need to sell and blah blah blah. But we haven't had like massive success with that. That's not been our number one go-to list. But
I do know some people that have really good success with for sale by owners for seller financing.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah. No, that makes perfect sense.
So for each one of you guys, what is your favorite, best, or most interesting failure?
Wow. How in the world do you choose from all the failures that there are so many of? Oh, man.
I have an easy one for me if you want to think a little bit more.
Go for it.
So 2014, I had to fire my mom. Okay. So
that's a good one.
Right.
I don't know if I
And
can beat that.
I was under the impression that, so for anybody that works with family, like that's a tough thing to do, right? Especially from now that I look back at it, I'm like, you know what? My parents have been through a ton over the last 15 years. Yeah. And I look at it, and she's always been a bookkeeper, forever. And so she was doing that. And we had gotten to a point in 2014 where like, oh shoot, there's a couple reasons why we need to do this. One, what we need from her, she can't deliver anymore because she doesn't understand some of this. And number two, she's a total peacekeeper, but she's a hub for family drama, And so we all knew that it had to happen. Failure-wise, how I did it. So I thought that she was fully aware that it was happening and that she was like kind of excited to step back. And then when family get-togethers happen, it was no talk. There was no work-related stuff. Yeah, that wasn't the case at all. So it's like, yeah, hey mom, type of thing. We don't. I delivered it really poorly. We'll just leave it at that. Yeah. But I really did think I really thought it was going to go a different way. And
what was the lesson?
Lesson I learned was stop. Like, don't do things too fast. Like, think about it. Yeah. I'm one of those people that I like I'll jump out of the plane before I check if I have a chute. You know what I mean? Like, that's just me. And that was a problem in that instance. I should have checked my chute and make sure that everything was ready and then jumped. And I didn't. Yeah. And along the way, I hurt her. Right. So I got black holed for like a year, and I'm the favorite child. I can say that here. So, it was a bummer.
Yeah.
Man, that's good.
That's tough. Yeah. Well, so that should be easy for you to overcome. Like, what's the
right? I don't know.
Top that one.
I could not top that one. But honestly, I'll just piggyback because I think anytime that you fire someone in your organization, like you take it personal. Like it's almost like we failed them. So sometimes you're like, hey, don't let the door hit you on the back. Like, wow, like I didn't know that was your true colors, but it really is rare.
Yeah.
So every time that we do a fire, I think there are so many lessons that you learn, from that, and it really does make you better. Okay, like for instance, we've had to do some recently, and so from that, immediately after it happens, it's like, okay, what would I do different? How would I improve that? And so one of our mottos has been slow to hire, quick to fire. I don't think that we would fire as many people. I think there's a way to keep from having to fire people if you're really, really good at vetting them up front and making sure that that's going to be a good fit. The other piece that I think we're going to incorporate that would help, hopefully, other business owners is you have to document everything, by the way, you guys. And if there's issues that you see immediately, you need to address that. And so we have like a 90-day, policy where it's like, okay, the first 90 days, that's like a trial period for both of us. And it's okay for you to tell us, hey, it's not working, and same for us. But we're going to have a quarterly review and go over that and decide, okay, like this is what I like, this is what I want you to work on. And you give them something tangible to work on, and you write it out and you put it in. Like we use Zenefits, for instance. It's a software that will just keep track of the notes that we have, for the HR side of things. we've learned that, right? Like that's not something that in the past, like you said, like we would just call them up or just be like, on a Friday afternoon, hey, you're gone, know.
It wasn't that harsh.
Yeah, no, maybe not that specifically, but I've done that specifically with people. I've definitely failed on some sometimes where we've had to fire people, but those things have been huge lesson learners for us, and you have to document. You have to have quarterly reviews too. That's another thing I would push for everyone to do. Like, make sure that you're doing that every quarter, that you're sitting down. They know it, they expect it. Employees look forward to that, I realize, and they come ready, like with notes and like, hey, this and this bothered me when you did that, and you said it this way. Oh, really? I had no idea. Like, that's how it was. So you can shift and adjust, and that way there's no dispute what happened. And I think then it comes down to, okay, if they're going to go their separate way, like, it's very clear, like they were given notice and there were, clear things that need to be done. There was no surprises. That's the worst part, is when you blindside someone, they had no idea that it's coming. That's bad. You never want that as a business owner. You want to make sure that it was, they come in your office, they sit down, they already know, Right. They're like, yeah, I'm walking out, done. And so, yeah, lots of lessons learned.
Lots of lessons learned, for sure. All right, so I want you guys to think about what you want to leave listeners with. Guys, we have just a couple of quick announcements. So please like, subscribe, share, comment. It really help us out. We can reach more people if you guys do that. Next week's no show. We're going to be Collective Genius. And then the following week, we got Sandy Cesare. She's going to talk about how she's doing 70-plus mobile homes a year, I think nationwide, without a buyer's list. So check that out. Last thoughts.
I would say learn how to adapt. You got to, and if you're in real estate and you enjoy this, you're going to realize that we've been in it since 2008, and since then we've seen everything, from a crash, obviously, to like the boom, the bust. I mean, we're going to see it all. What we've learned though through that entire experience is, for instance, like this past year we learned a niche, right? And you mentioned manufactured homes, like that for us became like a really cool niche that all of a sudden we're like, hey, wait a minute, we have some cheap land, home prices are crazy, they're not affordable, and so there's a segment of the market that's being ignored.
FHA financing is available.
Yes, yeah, and now there's actually some really cool things with these manufactured homes. They can actually compare them to single-family homes now and get that same price. So there's a lot to that we can unpack, at a different time. But, that was just one example of this year. I learned that. I didn't know. Like, that was something that we always kind of like knew about, I guess, but we never really did it. And so you learn to adapt. Like, yeah, the market's tough right now. You can't get a ton of wholesale deals. You can't get a lot of flips. Well, hey, shift gears, figure out another way to make money. And so now that's actually been a really good revenue producer for us. So just learn to adapt in this business.
Awesome.
I don't know if I have any words of wisdom necessarily. I just I find somebody that inspires you, find somebody that motivates you, and then like cling to them. Because like I'm a weirdo, so I like to, like, as strange as it might be. He was mentioning looking up to a handful of Navy SEALs and things like that. Like I'm one of those people that if I can listen to talks or things like that just a little bit. Like I can't go listen to a ton of things. But just give me enough motivation to where I'm like, oh man, now I'm super motivated, I'm energized. That's all it takes for me. Like a very, very small dose of that carries me for days, you know? And so I think that sometimes we get too caught up in the flashing of checks across, you know what I mean, across somebody's Facebook feed or whatever, and just like, you'll get burned out in this industry. Like if that isn't you in a few months, are you burned out? Like, so find something that just motivates you that's long lasting. I don't know. For me, it's simple talks.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a lot to it. A lot of people are trying to find like the next big secret, read this next book, and really, we already know what we need to do. It's just actually going to do it. Yeah. Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Absolutely. Appreciate you having us
fun.
on. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks for it, Steve.
Thank you guys for watching. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Yeah, see, we real estate disruptors. Can't nobody touch us. And yeah, we about to give you game. Shout out to Steve Train. Real estate disruptors. They cannot touch us. And yeah, we about to give you game. Shout out to Steve Train. Jump on the Steve Train. Yeah, see, we real estate disruptors.